Today's video, I'm going to be taking you through an excerpt from my new book, The Plant-Based Diet for Beginners, and we're going to be talking about ingredient lists versus nutritional labels or nutrition labels. Now, many people, as they're getting started on a plant-based diet, have the confusion of thinking that if a nutrition label says that the fat is 0 or no fat, or if it says that it's made with all organic ingredients, or it's made with all real ingredients, or it's made with all good for you ingredients, whatever that certification or whatever that claim is, and there are good certifications and there are good claims, but you've got to understand that when you're adopting a plant-based diet, when you're getting things rolling on a plant-based diet, you can't go, your eyes kind of have to be open to the fact that the food manufacturers and the food in the packaged foods, you've got to be weary of or be leery of it and really make smart decisions when you're looking at packaged foods, right? You don't have to do that if you're shopping in the produce section. Shout out to my buddy Marley, the produce section challenge. But there are some foods that you're going to buy in a package or that may be slightly more processed. And so what you're going to look at is to say, what are we going to look at? Are we going to look at the ingredient list, or are we going to look at the nutrition label? And so let's read an excerpt from my new book, The Plant-Based Diet for Beginners. Got the link there. If you haven't checked it out, it's available for pre-order on Amazon. But hey, you get an excerpt from free tonight, so let's go through it. And sorry, I'm a little bit stuffy, but I think we'll all be able to bear through it here. All right, ingredient list versus nutrition label. And this is in my section, The Plant-Based Kitchen. So we talk about some essentials and kind of getting started. So here we go. While the best place to do the majority of your shopping will be the produce and dry goods section, you will of course find yourself in some of the center aisles of the grocery store. This is where learning to read the ingredient list and then the nutrition label is so important. The ingredients list gives you a much clearer look at what's truly going into the product by listing all of the ingredients in order from largest in quantity to the smallest. Once you've looked at the ingredients, you'll be able to see whether it supports your whole food plant-based diet or it should go back on the shelf. The reason the nutrition label is less important is that food manufacturers can skew the figures by using unrealistic serving sizes that can keep certain nutrients from meeting the minimum amount required to be listed. That's key. This is how companies are able to list products like non-stick cooking sprays as being fat-free and 0 calories, even though the main ingredient and only ingredient in many of those is oil. Again, that was an excerpt from the new book, The Plant-Based Diet for Beginners, the ingredient list versus nutrition label. So let's dive into that just for a few seconds. I told Dr. Miller I wouldn't be too late tonight. We went into like 30 minutes last night going through an excerpt, but let's keep it around 10, 12, 15 here. I keep getting, So here's the thing. Many people getting started on a plant-based diet, a whole foods plant-based diet, one that is going to be predominantly lower in fat, higher in carbohydrates, higher in fiber, one that people in populations have eaten similar diets to for thousands of years without the chronic diseases that are plaguing the modern world, like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and obesity. And so they become more aware of what they're getting. Right before, I remember it's amazing to think, but growing up, my parents would just say, "Oh, there's that," and never look at the back of a box of Cheez-Its or crackers or just really any of the packaged foods. And as my parents and as Dr. Miller and myself we're getting started on a plant-based diet, right? The first kind of move you go to is say, all right, you become more hyper aware of. Is it vegan? Does it have any animal products in it? Because if it does, then we're not going to put that in our body or in our shopping cart. But beyond that, you need to look at, you begin looking at things like, and if you go the wrong route, you'll begin just looking at the nutrition label, which will say things like total fat, 0 grams, carbohydrates, 20 grams. And then on the front of the package, it'll say fat-free or calorie-free or heart healthy. And what you've got to realize, and as someone who was in the food manufacturing business, many of you don't know this, I guess. It's not something I talk about a ton, but back when I was at the University of Nebraska, right, we beat the Georgia Bulldogs in the Gator Bowl, go Huskers, starting college football player for them. But I started a candied pecan and almond company, and we sold at farmers markets. We were in stores. We had a co-packer. It got pretty large. But the one thing you learn when you begin a food manufacturing company is how to skew labels. And nobody goes out of their way to be devious or dubious as you're doing that, but you just realize, oh, if I add just this much in there and not any more, then I can list it as 0 grams of that, or I can put it as the third ingredient, not the second, or the fourth ingredient, not the fourth or the third, and you can skew those things. And so what these food manufacturers do, and why it's so important to not look at the nutrition label first, but to rather look at the ingredient list, is because the perfect example is cooking spray. Pam, generic brands, I don't care what brand it is. Many people getting on a plant-based diet, I'll see it over and over and over again, and it's not your fault. It's the fact that we've just not learned how to read nutrition labels and look at ingredient lists. But they'll say, oh, I use, I hear it all the time. It's funny. It's you just coming back. I'm seeing all these faces, but I use non-fat cooking spray, so I'm good and nothing sticks, and I don't have any of the calories and none of the fat. Well, there's a great video out there by Jeff Novak, who's a nutritionist, and he's worked with Dr. McDougall and many other plant-based physicians and individuals. But he talks about how the fact that they can list cooking spray as fat-free and calorie-free because the serving size is 1/3 of a second. And now, I'd really recommend watching that video because it's a really good one. But just to give you an idea of what 1/3 of a second is, it is this. So if you have that cooking spray and you do 1/3 of a second, it is this. And I don't know so there you go. That is technically, even though it's 100% oil, 100% fat, that's technically fat-free and technically calorie-free, which it's not because it's 100% fat and 100% fat calories. But here's the thing is, even with knowing that, nobody uses 1/3 of a second to spray their cooking spray. It's kind of an evil thing that these companies are doing because it's the most, it tricks everybody. But here's the thing. You ever see someone use non-fat cooking spray? This is how it goes. It's 0 calories and 0 fat, so I can just use as much as I want, right? 15 seconds and 1/8 of the bottle later, you've got 200 calories sitting on your baking sheet or your muffin tins or whatever you're using that on, and so that is the key reason we have to look at the ingredient list and not the nutrition label. Because here's the deal: if you were to look just at the nutrition list on something like cooking spray, you'll see. Or if you look at the nutrition label, it'll say 0 calories, 0 fat, heart healthy, all these things that they're able to do because the food industry is what it is. And again, I was a part of the food industry, and I was not necessarily selling the healthiest product, so I understand where they're coming from. I don't agree with it anymore. But if you were to take 2 seconds and look at the ingredient list, you'll see canola oil, soybean oil, maybe a filler, or maybe a compressed something to keep the compressed air. All these things. But the number one ingredients are going to be fat and oils, and so that is why you look at the ingredient list. And so here. And again, if you're buying potatoes, sweet potatoes, rice, beans, corn, frozen vegetables, even frozen vegetables, you want to look at the ingredient list because it's packaged, and sometimes they try to sneak in oil on you, and you don't want that because there's so many other great options that are just 100% frozen veg. But you see all these things, and a lot of people on a whole food plant-based diet, getting started on a plant-based diet, they're not on a whole food plant-based diet because they'll go to the store and they'll see vegan, a V on there. And again, we eat 100% vegan, but the type of vegan food we're eating is plant-based foods that we get, like brown rice, sweet potatoes, rice, beans, oats, corn, quinoa, fruits and vegetables, and not we don't shop in the middle of the store, right? Just filling our cart with things that have a V on it that say it's vegan, so it must be healthy, right? It's vegan, so it must be healthy. It's vegan, so it must be healthy. No, because all you'd have to do is take, again, 1.5 seconds and look at the nutrition label, or stop looking at the nutrition label, which is telling you it's got 0 fat and 0, all this, and then you look at the ingredients and you see it's got soybean oil and process this and filler that, and once you begin, here's the key: once you begin looking at the ingredient list, it's going to make shopping and going whole food plant-based a lot easier, because instead of being being willfully unaware, as many of us are, and some of us are not knowingly at that point. But once you realize the ingredient list is what it is and the nutrition label is what it is, you can't be you just aren't able to. I guess you could, but you'd be lying to yourself. You can't go and grab a package of vegan chocolate chip cookies and say, oh, it's healthy. The nutrition label says it's healthy because it's heart healthy or because it's got this amount, it's got good fat or it's got this or that. So boom, we're going to look at it, and instead of putting that in the cart and being willfully unaware or unwillfully, whichever way, we're going to look at the ingredient list and say, oh, white flour, white sugar, and soybean oil. That's not something I want to put in my body. None of those things I can pick up at the produce section. We're going to put that back on the shelf. Now, are there things that you're going to pick up, following a plant-based diet, right? If you're just beginning a plant-based diet, say you're a beginner, are there things that you're going to pick up that are going to be packaged that you may need to look at that? Yeah, there are. I'd recommend things like, I'll just go through a few of these, we've got things like frozen vegetables, right? I use a lot of frozen hash brown potatoes, frozen diced potatoes, and you have to look at the ingredient list because it's crazy. The package will say 100% real potatoes or real Idaho potatoes or whatever it wants to say. And then you just turn that over and you see there's two ingredients. There's potatoes and there's soybean oil or whatever type of oil in there. And you say, nope, because guess what? There's 5 different options at the grocery store, and a lot of them, maybe there's 2 or 3, and one of them is going to be 100% just potatoes. It's going to say it on the front, and you better believe it's going to say it on the back. And but then when you get to that point, you say, I'm tired of being lied to by the food industry. Some other things would be things like corn tortillas. You want to make sure that you're getting ones that are really corn, lime, and maybe some salt in there if you're going to get those. You really can't find salt-free corn tortillas, but you want them to stay away from ones that have 15 ingredients, right? And even those, sometimes on the front of the package or the nutrition label will say, made with all real ingredients. Well, they're real, but they're really bad for you, ladies and gentlemen. And so those are some options, but here's the deal. Right, if we're thinking about buying food, and in the book, I've got full sections on how to stock a pantry easily, cheaply, and effectively on a whole food plant-based diet. Things like shopping tips. I think we're going to get into that too in another video. Again, I plan on doing these videos, kind of jumping in, reading some excerpts from the book, leading up to December 10th, which is when the book ships. I'm really excited about it. It's pre-order on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Angus & Robertson in Australia, UK and Canada, Amazon. So it's available pretty much everywhere major books are sold. Really excited about it. But we're talking about different things. But here's the deal. And it can take a little bit of work. I know we're talking about getting my parents on board, my mom, my dad. With them, they were so conditioned to just go to the grocery store and put something in there because maybe they just saw a commercial on TV, right? Maybe they just saw a commercial. I'm pointing to my computer. I'm not pointing at TV, but maybe they saw a commercial that said it's heart healthy. And so they see it at the grocery store, and these companies are paying millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars to tell you what's healthy and what's good for you. And guess what? The only thing that is healthy and good about those products is it's healthy for their bottom line and good for their senior level managers and marketing teams because they're getting you to buy their junk. And so, you can go for it takes a little process. It takes a second to say, all right, well, here's a product. Instead of just putting it in my cart because they say it's healthy for me, I'm going to take another 2 to 5 seconds, look at the ingredient list, and put it back. And you'll know if you're shopping next to maybe some whole food plant-based dieters or maybe some other vegans and at the grocery store, and maybe they're going to be putting different things in their carts. A lot of the same, though, hopefully, a lot of the fresh fruits and vegetables. But you'll know if you're at the grocery store and you see someone, they're picking things up, looking at the back of it, putting it back, looking at the back of it, putting it back. I think they're reading the ingredient list and not the nutrition label. And so that's a good habit to build, a really good habit to build, one that I think can really get you on the right track. Because one of the hardest things to do, the most frustrating things if you're getting started on, say, a plant-based diet and you're just beginning it, is to begin following what you think is good advice and eating what you think are going to be good foods, but taking advice from maybe industry and or friends who may not be eating necessarily a healthy whole food plant-based diet or a healthy vegan diet. Some people who are just eating maybe just a generic vegan diet, and you think, oh, just look to see if there's no eggs or animal products or byproducts in it. But really what we're looking for is those ingredients are going to be made from whole foods, whole plant foods, not from Whole Foods. Whole Foods sells a bunch of junk too, good fruits and vegetables. So they're going to be made from whole plant foods. And we're going to, that was great. Beth said she's met other whole food plant-based folks that way at the grocery store, I'm guessing, seeing that. So that's awesome to hear. But yeah, so read the ingredient list and then the nutrition label. But here's the deal. You don't even have to read the nutrition label if you read the ingredient list. Because if the ingredient list says whole brown, say you're buying a package of brown rice and it says brown rice, nothing else. Well, guess what? You can rest assured knowing that that's going to be a healthy food to be adding in and building a diet around on a whole food plant-based diet. So buy the staples. Sometimes you have to buy the staples packaged, and you're going to need to look to make sure there's no oil or any junk ingredients that have been added in. But if you're buying fruits and vegetables, potatoes, sweet potatoes, rice, beans, corn, quinoa, oats, and buying fruits like apples, bananas, pears, mangoes, strawberries, pick whatever, pick what you like, and vegetables like beans, green beans, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, those are our favorite 4 or 5. If you're eating those, and then whatever we grow here on the 1 acre vegan farm, but if you're eating those, it's not going to be that of an issue, but you are going to come up with the fact that you're going to be at the grocery store. Someone's going to say you're either shopping with your kids, you're shopping with your husband, you're shopping with your wife, you're shopping with grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, some random person who says, you got to try this, put it in your cart. And what are you going to do when little Billy says, Mom, I want this, Dad, I want this? Well, I want you to live a long and healthy life and not have to battle with the same chronic diseases, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, cancers, obesity that every other person in the modern world is going to be dealing with by eating this processed and packaged junk. So that is today's little excerpt from the new book, The Plant-Based Diet for Beginners. I really hope you guys really enjoy it. And again, it's coming out December 10th, so right around the time with the holidays, right around the corner. So get a copy for yourself if you'd like. I know I just posted a crispy tofu with oil-free stir-fry rice, both from the book, really simple recipes. Check them out on my page. But we've got this book. Look at that. That looks tasty, doesn't it? But we got this book sitting up on our pantry, and instead of, normally for dinner, I'd say, all right, Dr. Miller, any requests for dinner? I come in from the farm, and she'll say, well, she'll look on the website and say, well, that sounds good. How about we make that? Or maybe she'll make it from the plantbasedgabriel.com, or she'll go to forksovernibes.com, or, all these great recipe places. But now, she just goes up to the pantry, pulls it out, and says, how about we make this? And I say, I would love to, darling. I would love to. Love to, Dr. Miller. So I hope that you guys get to experience the ease of use and the benefits that a plant-based diet has to offer and what the plant-based diet for beginners has to offer. So it's available for pre-order on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere major books are sold worldwide. The Kindle version and the paperback version are both available for pre-order. And so please let me know. Like I said, we're getting a copy, but we're also getting a bunch of copies to send out to family and friends and just some individuals that I know are going to really be able to utilize the benefits of a plant-based diet. So, well, thank you. We, reading some comments here. Yes, we, Dr. Miller and me have quite the fun relationship. So, and we're adding baby Miller here in January, the second week of January. I'm getting a lot of questions, right? My baby is coming out December 10th, and me and Dr. Miller's baby, I guess this is our baby too, but our real child baby is coming out the second week of January. And so the first thing, I've been getting asked a lot of questions. Is it going to be a boy? Is it going to be a girl? And here's the thing, we're not finding out. We decided to keep it a surprise, and we're enjoying it because here's another thing. Grandma and grandpa, and then grandma and grandpa and aunt and uncle are wanting to know boy or girl, because they want to buy a bunch of baby clothes and gender specific stuff. Well, that'll be fine, but we are minimalist. We live in a smaller house, and we enjoy not being weighed down by possessions and things. And so now, not revealing the baby's gender, we are, and we don't know, it's not like we know, we're not telling anybody, we're able to say, well, how about you buy some helpful things like cloth diapers or some simple health, helpful things, and not super specific things that will only be able to be used once or twice. So that was helpful. Maybe a tip for you if you're expecting, but if you already found out, you already found out. So that's it for tonight. Plant-Based Diet for Beginners, out for pre-order. I am Plant-Based Gabriel. I love you guys so very much. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you in another video or another picture or another post very, 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 very soon. We'll see you guys.